Today on Vantage Revival, we watch a 2019 Roger Kumble-directed film about an environmentalist winning a B&B on the other side of the world. When she realizes it's a dump, she decides to use the help from the small community to fix it up. When she meets the town's heartthrob, she starts to fall in love, and decides to take him alongside her on her project. But how will things end when she is choosing between San Francisco and small-town life? Falling in Love, now playing on Vantage Revival. So, first question.
Yeah.
How sick of you are you of my rom-com movies?
Okay.
I think I asked this last season too.
I'm not... I do like rom-com movies, but they must have one or two things preferably.
Okay.
Romance or comedy.
Okay.
And I'm struggling to find the romance and especially the comedy in these rom-coms.
Wait. Where are you missing the romance?
So this movie, I think, out of all the ones we've seen so far, has probably the best romance. Mm-hmm. My issue with the romance is it doesn't feel like there's any sort of growth. They go from... All these movies start the same way. They don't like each other. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden they go on a picnic and they make out in the ocean. And that's the extent of their relationship. Yeah. And then it's like... Do I stay? Do I go? I guess I'll stay. Delta, this movie had no real threats. Yeah. There was no real consequences because the idea of this girl going to New Zealand to reopen this Airbnb or flip this Airbnb clearly had no consequences because the option to go home was always there. And even when she had technically no money, they just gave her money. And that's the thing. So even with this romance, her going back home, okay, she gets to not spend time with the man she just met over the last month, or she stays and spends time with the man she just met over the last month. There's no real loss anywhere. And even bringing Dean into the equation when he came to New Zealand didn't really cause any problems.
No
at
drama.
all.
Yeah, well, a little bit of him being like, yeah, boyfriend, but that's it. Yeah.
It was really basic. I think there's moments where the romance could shine brighter to highlight the opposite, because these movies all flatline for me. There's no peaks or valleys. So I can't root for anyone because I know they're going to get what they want without having to work for it. Mm-hmm. There was really nothing that they had to build the relationship for other than she had to stop hiding every time he walked into a room that she was in. That's the extent of the drama in their relationship. So I think that's where I'm missing the romance, is he didn't have to do anything really to convince her other than the picnic. And she didn't have to do anything at all to convince him. Yeah. So I think that's what I'm missing, that kind of chase, the fun excitement of how relationships start. What do you like about that person? Why does she fall in love with this person? And I don't think, at least for me, it was made very clear why she loves this man, except that he puts money towards her Airbnb and he's sexy without a shirt on. There wasn't really anything else he did. Maybe you have a different picture of the romance here, but I didn't see the romance.
So essentially, let me just give a brief synopsis of the movie. She gets scammed getting a Airbnb and she moves to New Zealand, and this guy shows up right away. His name's Jake. This guy shows up right away, sexy, in his truck. It's not an Alberta truck, but it's a truck nonetheless. And she turns him down. She goes to this coffee shop, and you're right, a lot of this movie is unrealistic in the sense of she goes into this coffee shop, everyone knows that she's the winner of the Airbnb, and they're giving her free coffee, and they're giving her free this, and giving her free this, and giving her this. I agree with the romance part. This movie is the most romantic that we've had, probably because they're adults and we've watched a lot of teen romance stuff.
That's fair.
There was nothing, there was no threat. There was no threat from Dean until the very last minute, and her and Gabriella, the main character, the one who won, and Jake had kind of already stopped being friends and seeing each other for the moment because
he didn't affect that relationship.
Exactly. And so yeah, I do agree with you. The romance in this was very scarce, and I feel that there is a lot of rom-coms that we do watch, unfortunately, and ones that I do like, but where the whole time is them avoiding being romantic in any sense, and then the last 3 minutes is them being romantic, instead of let's just compare to the most romantic movie on the planet, The Notebook, where the whole movie from start to finish is about their romance, and there's
peaks and valleys
in that movie,
which is why it's so amazing.
And that's And that's why it's the best built, best romance movie out there. I mean, comparing every rom-com or every romance movie to The Notebook would be totally unfair to every other romance movie. But at the same time, yes, when you're having a title of a movie like Falling in Love, in being
the N of
the N, I-N-N, you're really pushing the fact that, like, there's going to be crazy romance, which there's not. He's just nice to her. He's willing to fix her Airbnb. She needs help with her Airbnb. She makes all these other friends along the way, and they all have the same relationships as she does with Jake. And then the last 3 minutes of the movie is, like, a little bit of romance, or probably the last 10 minutes of the movie starts showing a little bit of romance. So I agree with you in the sense where, like, it's not that romantic. For me, it was a little bit funny because I laughed at some parts.
But I don't think there was really any comedy between the two of them.
Oh, not between the two of them, no.
And I think that's an important part for a rom-com, is to have some comedy between the couple. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So yes, there's comedic parts and there's funny parts, especially with Gilbert the goat.
Yes.
And I love goats. But her and Jake didn't have much romance and zero comedy together. It takes away from it being a rom-com. You know, I can't really describe what it is because it didn't really hit those marks. Let's talk about being false advertised. Why did Netflix give a warning for fear and fright when the movie started?
I think that the fear was like, oh my gosh, I have no money and I'm going across the country. But everyone in the fucking town was like, you have a 90-day tab. Pay me back. You know what? Just pay me when the B&B makes money. It's like, I get it. Very unrealistic.
But my question is, why did Netflix, in particular, give this a disclaimer that there was fear in this movie?
I don't know.
That doesn't make any sense.
Honestly, you're looking at the title and you know that doesn't make any sense. Falling in love. Ooh, fear. Crazy.
So dumb. You know what? Fine. It would have been cool if they had a haunted aspect to it, but that's fine, they didn't. But they did have a creepy vibe, and they did have the owner previously, Mabel, I believe her name was.
Yeah.
They had kind of the idea that her spirit was still there. And when Gabriella finds the collection of envelopes in the wall, the love letters, I thought, okay, cool. This is going to be something that's, again, is going to be engaging and going to release more history of the house or the inn, and of Mabel's life and how it's going to kind of connect to her life. Nope. It was about the war. And somehow she, got both copies of the letters, and they read them like 20 minutes later. They didn't even read them when they found them. And it just didn't really, again, add very much. That whole section could have been removed and made no difference to the entire plot. Again, I think it was a missed opportunity. Why couldn't they have connected those letters to the problems? I mean, she didn't have many problems, but the problem she was having, which again was another issue of it being convenient.
Yeah.
Within the first 5-10 minutes of the movie, it's painted as if her life is crumbling. She breaks up with her boyfriend, her job shuts down, she's now jobless. She is not enjoying life very much anymore. And then, conveniently, she enters a contest and wins it in New Zealand, where they don't live. She lives in San Francisco. Even though her life is completely crumbled, so to speak, at that moment, she's able to go to New Zealand.
Not only, I get that it was like, last day to enter to win this inn is today, but she literally enters at probably fucking midnight, and she wakes up the next morning with her credit card in her hand because there was an admissions fee. Instantly, she won that contest. Within like a couple of hours, they had done the draw, and she had won.
And it looked like the biggest virus scam website,
Yeah. Just blinking, like the flashing congratulations. And she's like, yeah, I'm just gonna board a flight to New Zealand now. There's no like in between where she's telling her friends anything. It's just like, she's won, she's on a flight to New Zealand.
Can we talk about her submission, her letter, of like why she deserved to win? It literally went like this. Well, I used to live in a house, that I liked ice cream, and when I was a kid, I really wanted to have a house of my own, and I'm like, she's supposed to be this big professional, yet she wrote the stupidest submission letter. And I get that maybe that's why they're like, this girl's stupid, give it to her. But which doesn't make sense either, because even if they did that, a stupid person probably doesn't have the funds to fly to New Zealand and live out there.
Exactly.
So they wouldn't want someone who is completely stupid to win this prize. So it made no sense that submission letter was the one that beat out everyone else.
Well, and not only that, but even the way that they edited in her creating that submission letter, they basically, like, she sat down with a bottle of wine and then she took a sip, and then they did a couple cutscenes where it made it seem like she should have like 3,500 of the 4,000 necessary words, but they go through like 4 cutscenes of her like finishing sentences. A bottle of wine, and she hadn't even started yet. And then they do like 3 more cutscenes, and she's like, next sentence. It's like, come on, guys. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, and in these rom-coms, you kind of have to turn off your brain a little bit and let what happens. But there's a lot of stupid things, or not even stupid, just illogical, like would never ever happen, and it's so far from reality. Even her going to New Zealand and literally not knowing where it is, just being dropped off on a road and being like, I don't know, where do I go? Like,
and her walking the kilometer, she's still in her heels. Like, I know that she's American, but we know how much a kilometer is. You're not walking that fucking far in heels on a dirt road. Literally. You're not. And like jumping a little bit, but speaking of like the unrealistic, there's a girl, her name's Charlotte in New Zealand. She owns the only other B&B and the only running B&B in New Zealand, in this town in New Zealand. And she comes up and she's trying to buy the B&B, the other B&B from Gabriella. She's trying to cause scenes. She's trying to be the threat in the movie. That's what she's trying to do. But she's very much one of those, I would say, like sorority sister-esque type
it's
character.
It's very frenemy.
Yes. And she, at one point, decides that in order to mess with Gabriella, that she's going to steal Gabriella's phone somehow and text Dean, the ex-boyfriend.
And get into her phone.
Somehow. Literally, if you have an iPhone, you have a passcode on it.
Or a finger lock.
Or Face ID or something. Like, if you have an iPhone, you have a lock on it. There's no getting around that. You've got so much... Realistically, you've got so much stuff stored on your cloud. You've got Apple Wallet. You've got all this information. Your phone's locked up.
Yeah.
So, how she got in there in the first place. Secondly, how the fuck did she not notice that that Dean got texted? I can only assume that if Dean, who was expecting text messages back from her, even if Charlotte deleted the message she sent, Gabriella would be like, why the fuck are you texting me telling me that you're coming to New Zealand or something?
No. You missed the text then, or missed the message.
What did it say?
Because he had been messaging her over the last little bit, and she did not respond to any of it. Mm-hmm. So it was like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and there was no response from her. So clearly she's reading the messages, but she's stopped. But then Charlotte said, stop texting me and just come to New Zealand if you want to prove you love me. So he stopped texting and he just flew over to New Zealand. So unless you go
that one was good. Good one.
Yeah, so unless you go in and actually look at your previous messages, even if she hadn't deleted it, you wouldn't have noticed it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But then I guess when you text, it would have been the top message, right? So she still would have noticed.
There's got to be something that she would have noticed that.
Unless she deleted it, but they didn't show her deleting it. If they had, that would have been smarter.
Yes.
But they didn't show her deleting it, so.
Yes, exactly.
Another kind of dumb move in this movie.
Well, yeah, and just the way she got the phone and everything was just not super realistic.
Mm-hmm. And my question too is, it was very obvious, and she kept saying this, that she did not want to be in New Zealand. She did not want to stay there. So why didn't she just take Charlotte's offer with the money? Like,
I know, I
get the point of the movie is to show that you can persevere and build this in and live your dream life, but that was not her goal. That was never her goal until about the halfway point.
Yeah.
Her goal was go there, see what it was like, and then get rid of it anyways, and make the money off of it no matter what, and then find out it was a dump, and then was just like, I don't want to be here, but I want to fix this and see what happens, but I don't want to be here.
Well, that's the thing. I think from the beginning, it could have been shut down really easily. She got it for her admissions price, whatever that was, $100 or whatever. So essentially, she got this free Airbnb. She could have just went home. She didn't have to sell it. It can still be owned under her. She officially owns it.
But I'm assuming there's taxes and stuff. So do you want to own a foreign land, have to pay off it, right?
There is true.
But she could have just sold the land itself.
Exactly.
There's so many other
there's
easier
so many
options.
But she decided that she was going to stay for a couple of days and see about fixing it up. And then, I mean, obviously she changes her mind in like the huge climax of the movie. I feel like this is going to be a little bit of a shorter one because there is not much honestly, there's not much to say. There's not anything deeply to dive into this movie about. But at the climax, she goes to sell the house because she decides she wants to go back home. And as she's about to sign papers to sell the house, she says she's not selling it anymore, which I think is like her realization of having real life is what they call it. And I think that you're right. It's very unrealistic, the fact that like she even, it is, I don't even know what to say because it's unrealistic. If she showed up and she saw how much of a piece of shit it was, she could have gone home and sold it. She could have sold it to Charlotte when Charlotte asked for it before she even fixed up the house. Charlotte was willing to fix up the house or fix it up from her.
Yeah.
She had so many options to get out of it, and she chose not to. And then she chose to build up tabs with towns members and literally just create this gorgeous, probably $1 million renovation on all of the gardens and all of this. And then she doesn't decide to sell it. She decides to keep it and make and like not make as much. I'm sure that she'll make money from it, hosting it as a B&B, but
here's the thing: it already was a B&B, and no one went, and it got shut down.
Exactly.
So like, there's good chances it'll be the exact same thing again, and then she'll be homeless in New Zealand.
The other B&B burnt down, so
I guess there's no other choices now going forward.
They have to go to that B&B. It is really like an unrealistic movie.
It was also a very woke movie. Let's point out some of the wokeness of it. Okay. Here's the thing. I'm going to preface this with, I am comfortable with everyone being represented and being highlighted in movies, but when it just felt like a checklist of, oh, we got this, and then we never saw some of those characters ever again, I'm like, this was literally just a checklist. It was not important to the plot at all. Mm-hmm. So first off, the main character, she had to be black. Mm-hmm. And half Spanish. Yeah. She had to be just broken up and independent. 100%, that's great. But, that is the start of the wokeism.
And she's also an environmentalist.
Oh, that's on my list, too.
Okay,
Trust. Okay. So, yeah, she's an environmentalist. She wants to put, solar panels on everything and green living. So that's a big part of the movie, which didn't really go anywhere, but it was a big part of the movie. They had the girl working there who had Down syndrome. Mm. And I don't care that she had Down syndrome. I think it's great that they had a character who represented someone with Down syndrome, but they only used it in that one scene and was like, ha. And then we never saw the Down syndrome girl again. So it was just checking off the checklist of woke things that needed to be in this movie. Fine, bring it in, but do something with it.
Yeah, 100%.
We have the gay couple who owns the coffee shop. Check that list, We have Charlotte, who is questionably a lesbian. Check that list, They would use terms like, oh, you're mansplaining now.
Yeah.
It just, everything was, how many things can we cram down people's throat that we want to see changing in our world? And I come again from the alphabet soup, and I am okay with it, but I want to see it utilized in a way that makes sense.
Yeah.
The gay couple were so stereotypical gay. Why do they have to be stereotypical gay? Why couldn't they have been different or cool in a different way,
Yeah.
Why did we have to attack Jake for all of his mansplaining when he didn't do anything wrong? He was a decent man.
He was just like a carpenter. He was a fix-it man.
Yeah, he didn't
And he wasn't mansplaining, he was just explaining
how these things worked. Because she had no idea.
Yeah,
she literally had no idea.
But I don't think that the directors or whatever necessarily, the writers didn't necessarily understand what mansplaining is, because he said, hey, for the faucet you have, you're going to need a different wrench. And she said, don't mansplain me. And I'm like, that's not necessarily what mansplaining means. Mansplaining is very obviously...
the girl already knows the answer.
Yes.
And the guy has to overbear it.
Yeah, exactly. Which honestly, just kind of going off course, I get mansplained every day. And I actually... So basically, I work in a pawn shop, which a lot of it is tools. And a lot of manly stuff comes through the door. But I've also been in pawn for 5 years. So I know it all now. I'm not stupid. But there's male customers who will deny getting help from me because they don't think I know what I'm doing. They think that I won't price their stuff appropriately because it's men's stuff, it's tools, it's this. Or they'll put a drill on the counter and then they'll be like, this is a drill, by the way. And I'm like, fucking thanks. I only see 100 of these a day.
I thought it was a hammer.
Yeah, and so it is it's frustrating. And what he was doing was not mansplaining. She literally had no idea, did not know, and he was helping her. He was helping and explaining. So the fact that they use the term mansplaining is just so out of line because he was not mansplaining.
And that's where I think, again, this movie was trying to be more woke than it was realistic by any means.
Yeah.
And it didn't need to say those things. It didn't need to be this representation it thought it was trying to be. Just be a rom-com. Again, the fact that it's a black female lead. And here's the thing. I love Christina Milian. I grew up with her. Her music was a big part of my life growing up. So when I saw her come on the screen, I'm like, oh my God, it already has bonus points because she's in this.
Nice.
And
then you hated every other second of it.
So it's not even, again, they had a black female lead or they had a girl with autism. It was just they did nothing with it.
Yeah.
They did nothing important with it. And if you're going to have this, I'm going to say it again, this woke movie, have a real message. What was the point of her green living message? It didn't counteract anything.
At the end of the movie, we saw a green B&B, but it did have nothing to do with explaining
the benefits of anything.
Yeah. I mean, like, she said, oh, the dishwasher uses less per liter, but, like, why is that important? It's...
We didn't watch the movie for that.
Yeah.
You know?
Like...
I think if they wanted to do this in a way that was beneficial, they should have had Jake be less green. He wanted to instill a fountain that had gas coming out of it. Like, there should have been some sort of pushback, and, like, if that's what they wanted to do, they should have had that be the conflict.
Well, that's why not even her own... The job that she worked in wasn't a conflict of her interest. It was, I get that was explaining that she had this, like, perfect life with this hot boyfriend and the perfect job and all that stuff, but there was no way of showing why it's beneficial to go green. It just said go green. Use the sun's natural rays to power your house because go green. But there was no actual, like, oh... You don't know why it's beneficial? Let me, as the lead character who's an environmentalist, explain to you why it is, while informing the audience why was the main character an environmentalist. There was no backstory to her either. There was no, oh, growing up, my father died of carbon monoxide poisoning, and now I'm all about going green. Like, there was nothing. It was just, I'm green, this needs to be green, this is my dream.
There was no womansplaining.
Yeah, there was no womansplaining. It was a terrible movie.
Yeah, so she had been there for about a week, and outside of getting, free coffee, free food, free tools, whatever she needed, literally, she tells them, I have no more money. And they're like, don't worry, we'll just pay for everything. Like, what world are we living in? That would never happen for even the closest of friends, let alone complete strangers. And what do these people do? Like, yes, it showed their jobs, but, like, they're all free at the exact same time every day.
Well, yeah, she's sick, and she went to a party and saw, like, 2 people while she was sick, and the next morning, without informing anybody that she is actually sick, she could have just had a fucking bug in her throat the day before. There's people showing up with honey and tools to fix her house and soup and this and that, and it's like, A, how did you guys all know? B, why are you guys here at the same time? C,
you're stalking me.
Sorry, why are you not coming in all at the same time? Why did they all come in one by one and explain their reasoning for being there?
And she kind of mentioned that with the clown car comment.
Yeah, like...
But it was stupid. It wasn't that funny, and it wasn't romantic by any means. And, like, they're all firemen as well.
I know, yeah.
Like, the whole town also is all firemen. Like, what the hell was this movie? Like, it just...
I think it was trying to show a way of, like, if a community comes together, anything can be possible, but...
That message was not clear then.
But it's not clear, A, and B, it's not plausible. There's no way that a local hardware store owner is ordering hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of gear and just saying, just pay me back.
Especially a small town one.
Yeah, exactly. Like, any local business is not going to do that, no matter how much money they make in comparison to other
Yeah, pay me
places.
back in 3 months.
But a small town, run down hardware store, I'm sorry, kind of run by a little bit of, like, a dummy. He's not just... Well, maybe that's why he did it, because maybe he's just, like, a little bit out there. But, like, they're not doing that. And nobody's doing that. The flower shop isn't going to do that. Flowers are fucking expensive. So the flower shop's not going to do that. The coffee shop, maybe, but, like, so what did that affect her life there? She got free fucking coffee. Woo, big deal.
And that was kind of my point again, where what was the consequences of any of her decisions? She had nothing to lose and everything to gain in every option that she made, either going home or staying. She had nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Nothing. And how is, again, keep in mind she's jobless, so she's not making income right now, and I'm sure she has a savings, and I'm sure she's rich. I guess she had a cool job. But she's going to stay in New Zealand for 3 months, use all of her money towards that. How is she paying for her place in San Francisco?
Yeah.
Like there's so many questions of just the money alone that doesn't... It's such an oversight and so distracting from the actual movie that it took me out of it. I'm, like, trying to budget her life, and she's not even worried about, how she afforded toilet paper. She doesn't care, Like, it doesn't make any sense. They have the fire at Charlotte's B&B. And Jake goes in and he is going to save one of the people in the Airbnb. And he does. And they kind of act like he's going to die, and it's somewhat dramatic. But he comes out holding the person he saved, and he has the dumbest smile on his face. I'm like, you literally almost died. Everyone else can't breathe when they're not wearing masks or anything. So everyone else is coughing and dying, and he just comes out with this big grin on his face, and I'm just like, This is, like, you look so dumb right now. Just look like you actually went through hell getting that man out in that fire. Like, just adding to the layer of unrealistic.
That is very true.
And I also want to talk about Dean. I do not enjoy the acting of Jeffrey Bauer Chapman. Or Capman. I don't remember his name. I think it's the guy who played Dean.
Well, the guy who played Dean. Oh, I'm so stupid. Sorry.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, I didn't think he was a great actor. They also did kind of try to paint him as, like, I don't know if they did try to paint him as this young guy, or this dumb guy. But, like, you know, with, like, the whole, like, trying to lick the edible paint type thing. Like, I don't know if that was just his style of acting, because it doesn't seem like they want to paint him as a dummy, but
then they do.
His acting does. Either his acting does or the script does. Just like every podcast that we've ever done, we've got a rating system. It's 5 different categories out of 3 for a total of 15 points. And we always start with our edge of seat rating.
I gave it a 2.
Oh my god, what?
And not because, like, it was, again, like, completely engaging for me, but I do love Christina. There's something about her that I've always loved. I don't know if it's, like, her smile or something, or, like, her energy. Her energy was really good in this movie. As little as she had to work with, I do think she was probably the best part of the movie.
Oh my god, okay.
So, having her as the lead did carry me through. And I was hoping Charlotte would be more evil. Mm-hmm. And so I kept waiting to see, what else is Charlotte going to do? What else will she do to get that Airbnb? And unfortunately, nothing. I didn't come to, like, that conclusion. But it was enough to, like, make me hope that there was more. So, I mean, overall, I was willing to see what was going to happen next, as much as I had problems with it. So a 2.
I gave it a 1.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, and you know what? You're going to hate my last rating because you're going to hear all the... whatever. Just be prepared. When you look at a movie like this, you know that she's going to keep the Airbnb. Like, and that's what I think you have to go into, like, rom-coms or romance movies or whatever.
Yeah, the endings are usually always obvious.
They're obvious, right? And so for me, and, like, yes, I've seen it before, but trying to do these ratings based on today's watch, but it's like, I know that she keeps the Airbnb, even regardless of watching it before. We know that she's going to fall in love with Jake. We know she's going to keep the Airbnb. They're going to own it together, blah, blah, blah. Like, you see that coming. There's really nothing. Maybe a little bit more suspense with, like, what happened to the teapot Airbnb or whatever Charlotte ran. Maybe if the fire happened a little bit sooner and then they gave some more, like, it might have put me on my seat a little bit more, seeing it's like the competition's Airbnb burnt down. That would have been a cool thing to add to it. But it was all pretty straightforward. She meets the guy, they fall in love, they keep the place together. It's pretty straightforward. Next, we have acting.
Gave it a 2 as well. Mm-hmm. Mostly there's a point for Jeffrey.
Yeah.
-1 already. There was no one that was like a bad actor. I think for what it was, everyone did the best they could with the script and whatnot that was given. Mm-hmm. So it deserves a 2.
I also gave it a 2. And for the same reason, I found that the doctor was a little bit off as far as acting went.
He's barely in it, I feel, though.
He's barely in it, but also I do not like the dumbness that I don't know if he was meaning to be dumb or just his acting of Dean. I just didn't necessarily like him in general as far as his acting went, but I think that I think the 2 main characters especially and their kind of byproducts of it, they did good. So a 2.
Okay.
Next is the script.
It's a 1. Yeah, there's no way around it. And again, this is kind of going for many of the rom-coms in the past. It did have what could have been a fun movie or a good idea, but it just didn't go anywhere. There was so much that you kind of abandoned and didn't focus on. A guy talked about the letters, and that should have carried the storyline. Bringing a ghost into it could have carried the storyline. Having more threats to make it seem like she had to make a choice that was really important would have made it a better storyline, but it didn't have it. So 1.
I give it a 1.5. I think that I agree with you. Like, there could have been more to it. I don't love the whole way that the letters went, but I do love the ending when he kind of writes up this, like, contract to them being business partners, but it's actually a love letter, and he ties in the fact that which is, once again, so unrealistic, but he found the marriage license of all the love letters and stuff. Like, come on. But I do love that. I do love that he did incorporate a love letter into saying that he loved her, especially because that was, like, on their first date, but Yeah, as far as it goes, like, I don't like the beginning. I didn't like her stupid little emoji character on her Oculus when she was on the treadmill. Like, I didn't like any of it. You're right, it was woke, and it was trying to be woke, and it was not. It should have just stayed. But I think it was the contrast, right? She's living in this, like, woke life, and then she goes to the small town.
Which was also woke, though.
And that's the thing. I think that they should have made it... have you ever seen the Hannah Montana movie?
I've seen parts of the Hannah Montana.
I think they should have made it more like the Hannah Montana movie, where it was, she literally went from being Hannah Montana to being
living on the
country twang, and yeah, she's spanking pigs on a farm in Tennessee, right? That would have made a really good contrast, but the contrast just wasn't enough. Climax.
1.5, only because I liked the part with Dean bringing in a buyer. Mm-hmm. I kind of liked that. I thought that was a nice little twist, that he wasn't just there to get her back, but also there to finalize the deal to make sure she came back. Nice little twist there. But of course, everything else, it was too convenient. So it's hard to give the climax a higher score because it was all paint by numbers. It was so obvious. And yet, again, no consequences. And that's the big thing. There was no consequences. And I think for a good climax, you have to have that moment where you make a decision. And if you fuck it up, you fucked it up.
Yeah, 100%.
And that would never have happened in this movie.
Yeah. I also gave it a 1.5. I think that Charlotte coming in and kind of like ruining the moment when they sign the paperwork to the buyer.
Sell it, yeah.
I think that was like a good moment to bring in why she decided not to sell, even though Charlotte was still... I would have honestly preferred it if Charlotte went like, it needs to be like a community run, so if nothing, at least you keep it, right? Like something that was just like kind of making Charlotte more accepting after her own Airbnb or her own B&B burnt down. Airbnb, fuck, I'm too woke. And welcoming her into the community, which she did. She said welcome to whatever. But I just wish that it was a little bit more like that. But I did like that touch. I like that touch that Charlotte was the reason that she decided that she needed to stay and work things out with Jake and no.
I wish that they had a scene before that where Charlotte came forward and then they had like a fight or something. And then she realized, oh, I really screwed up. And then came in and was like, I'm going to fix this, you know? But they didn't, it's just, again, it was too convenient. And then she was just like hugging her and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. Like,
yeah, and that's why, like, I liked the touch of it.
Yeah.
Instead of it being like...
It could have been better, though.
Because, and that's the thing, like, it could have been... Here's the thing. It could have been Jake being like, no, don't go, I love you, which would have been also classic rom-com. And that's what I think you expect, is that it's going to be Jake being like, please don't go because I'm in love with you. Especially after the moment where Shelley says, have you told her how you felt? And he just chooses not to, ever.
Well, they've only known each other for, like, a month.
No, 100%.
They're acting very dramatic for people they just met.
100%. I get that. But I do like that it wasn't like the classic, like Jake being like, I love you, don't go. And it was actually a different reason why she decided to keep the Airbnb. That's pretty much it. Lastly, would you watch again?
It's a 1.
It's a 1. I knew that, yeah.
And for you too?
No.
What?
Actually, that's the thing. I actually put it as a 2.
How? After everything you just
said? I've watched that movie
said...
multiple times. I know you say that. I what did I fucking say at the beginning of this rating? I said, you're going to be mad at my last one because of all the things that I'm going to say. But if someone asked me, do you want to watch Falling in Love? I'd be like, sure. Because I'm not. But if someone was just like, hey, you want to watch Dumplings? I'd be like, no, probably not. I don't really want to watch that. I'm just saying, though. I'm just saying. If someone asked me to watch this movie again, I'd watch it again.
I'm just, again, confused. You confuse me every time we do this.
Because just because I say that a movie sucks doesn't mean I want to watch it again.
Or you say it sucks and you do want to watch it again, so...
It's a maybe. I'm not turning it down. I'm just not saying that I would for sure do it. You are an absolute no. I'm like a, meh, sure. I'll watch it again.
Well... Enjoy the next watch.
Yeah, I will. Anyways, see, I told you he'd be mad. I called it. That gives me a total of 8 out of 15.
What is mine? Mine is 7.5.
7.5. Okay, so yeah, like literally, we're right on the par. I'm 5 points ahead of you, and you're really gonna. You know what?
You're 5 points ahead of me. That is.
I'm 0.5 points ahead of you.
Oh, okay. I was like, if 5 is way... I obviously did not hear your score.
I'm an 8, you're 7.5. If you guys didn't hear our banter about the rating system in the other day's podcast when we watched Dumplings. Go listen to it because we have a good little rant about our rating system, and we decided not to hold grudges, but as you can hear, we are still holding grudges. So
again, it's one-sided. I have no grudges. I've never held a grudge.
He's holding a fucking grudge. I just don't understand.
That's it. We're watching The Grudge next week.
Oh my god.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Vantage Revival, and listen every Tuesday and Friday for our newest podcasts. Share, comment, and subscribe.